Today we're going to be going over the crocodile stitch, crochet crocodile stitch, and we'll be making this lovely little purse. Okay, the crochet flap of crocodile stitches actually is worked first, so that way we get the most difficult part over with, and then we join and we go around and the rest is worked in single crochets. We're going to add a strap that you can make however long you want. That we add last. And our very beginning chain, you're going to chain afterwards, and we'll make a little loop that you can attach a nice little button here for a closure. You can also dress this up to look like an owl, and you would just crochet eyes and then a little beak, and you would have a lovely little owl purse. We are going to go over how to make these crocodile stitches, and they're actually made using a 2-row repeat. And we're going to start at the very tip, and this is our very first scale. And then if we look at the back, you can kind of see it more when it changes color over here. But one row you'll make these little bullion-like things that give you our scales. And then the next row, you're going to make the foundations where the chain, the scales go into. So I will show you how to do that. They want you to use a magic ring for this project. The way that I do the magic ring is more like a sloppy Slipknot. So I'll show you my way. If you know how to do the magic ring, go right ahead. If you don't want to try it, you can definitely do the method where you just go into the the last chain from the hook. So you would chain 3 and then go into that one. Okay, so we're going to leave a length of yarn for our enclosure at the end. And we're just going to make a slip knot. And the way that we do that is we bring the yarn in our left hand over the yarn in our right hand so that we're making an overhand loop. And then from the top, you're going to reach in and pull up this strand. And this is the strand that you're going to put on your hook. And you'll see, if we turn it over, that it's kind of made a sloppy little slip knot. There's twisted strands at the top and then a single loop at the bottom. We're going to go into this great big hole, and we're actually going to crochet over the twisted strands, and that's going to give us our base. So the first thing it tells us to do is we're going to chain 3, and that counts as our first double crochet. So we do 1, 2, 3. And then we're going to do 4 more double crochets into the ring, and we're going to crochet over this twisted part. So by doing that, I just go over both of them and pull up my loop. And that is 1, so we're going to do 3 more. I've got to do 1 more. And then we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to double crochet 5, all in this same ring, and all going over the 2 strands. Let's just count again. I did 4. I got to do 1 more. Okay. Now this is your first shell, but it looks kind of weird like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull the first strand, and as you're pulling it, you see that loop is getting smaller and smaller, and it's going to tighten up. Okay? And then this is the first scale that we've done. So we've got 1 scale down. Now we're going to do row 2, and we're not going to turn. We are not turning here. So we are going to go and we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And that counts as our first double crochet. We're going to crochet around this very first post. So we're going to yarn over and then insert the hook from the front to the back. We pull up a stitch. So now we've got, in essence, 2 double crochets. The chain 3 counts as 1, and we've got 1 more double. Now we're going to chain 1, and we're going to go into the very center of that hole that we just closed up, and we're going to do 2 double crochets in that very center. 1 and 2, and again we have not turned. We're going to chain 1 more, and then we're going to do 2 in the top of the turning chain that was the very first one that we did. So we're going to go right to the edge and go in that guy with 2. And now again, so we've done row 1 and row 2. These are the 2 rows that you're pretty much going to be doing, okay? We make V's and then we make a shell. So again, we are not going to turn our work. We are just kind of going to rotate our work. So row 3, and again, don't turn. And I forgot to mention it, but when you look at the pattern for row 2, it'll say chain 3 counts as a double crochet, and then it says PIC 1. That just means to refer to picture number 1. That's all PIC stands for. It's not a fancy stitch. So we're on to row 3. We're going to chain 3, and we are not going to turn. What we're going to do is we're going to do 4 double crochets around this very first post. So you just do 4 in here, and as you work the 4, you'll notice that the work automatically kind of starts rotating. So there's 3 and 4. Now, the next half of it is we are going to double crochet. Let's see, do we chain first? Hold on. We're going to chain 1 first, okay? Then we're going to do 5 double crochets around this next one. So we kind of rotate, again, we're not turning, but we rotate the work a little bit. And then we're going to just do 5 around this one. So we are creating the other half of our crocodile scale. Okay, and if the yarn gets a little tangled, which mine just did, I'm going to take the stitch out and I'm going to do it again. For some reason this yarn keeps splitting on me. So we're going to go in. This is 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so once you have done that, we are going to skip the middle. We're going to skip this chain 1 spot, okay, and we're going to skip this first double crochet, and we're going to just slip stitch into here. Okay, so that now you'll see that we have made a second scale, okay? And then what we are going to do, okay, and it'll flop down as you work more, but right now it kind of flops back up, okay? So now we have to make the next part of our shell, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to use the last 2. We're going to skip over these guys and we're going to use the last 2, okay? So we're not turning, but our work gets rotated. And at this point, it kind of helps if you kind of flatten the work, you kind of bend it. And we're going to do 5 around the second to last double crochet. So I have not turned, I've just kind of rotated. And 5. We chain 1, and now we're going to do our last ones around this last post. And again, we do 5 again. Okay, so you'll see that now we have 3 scales, okay? Now the scales are always going to be worked in the very first stitches and the very last stitches, so that way your edge is scalloped, okay? And you'll be increasing one shell each row. So we started out with one shell, now we've got 2 shells. The next row we're going to have 3. I call them shells, but they're actually scales, okay? So now we're going to chain 3 again. Okay, and again, we're really not turning the work at all. We're rotating, but we're not flipping back and forth. So this counts as 1, and now we're going to go for 2, just the second one right around here. So we have made our first V. We're going to chain 1, okay, and then we're going to do 2 in the very center of this guy. 1 and 2. We chain 1 again, and then we're going to do 2 in the center of these guys, in between the 2 shells. And we chain 1, and then we go into the center of the scale. Chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 in the very top of the turning chain from the previous row. Okay, so you'll see this row, we have now made a bunch of V's, okay? And you're going to have 2 shells at the end and a shell in the middle, okay? For row 5, okay, we're going to chain 3. 1, 2, 3. And again, we're not flipping our work. We're keeping it with the right side facing. And this one counts as 1. So now we're going to do 4 more around this very first. And we're going around the stitch. We're not going into the stitch. 2, 3, 4, and we chain 1, and then we're just going to rotate so that we go around the next part of this V, and we're going to do 5 in this one. Okay, so now we have to anchor the shell. So what we're going to do is we skip the next double crochet, and then we slip stitch into the second one. So we skip 1 double crochet, slip stitch into the next one, and then we go back to our 5 around the next V. So we're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We chain 1. We rotate our work a little, and now we're going to chain 5 around the next double in that V. Okay, and then we have to slip stitch again. So again, we're going to skip the first and go into the second with a slip stitch. I lost the yarn, so we take the yarn out, we go back into the stitch. Into the second one. And pull it through. Now we're going to rotate to do our last scale. So again, we're going to do 5 around this one. We chain 1 and we're going to do our last 5 around that last double crochet. And 5. So now you'll look and you'll see that we have created 3 shells in this last row. Okay, each row you're going to increase by 1 shell, so we repeat rows 4 and 5. So this row we would chain and do 1 around here, 2 in the center, 2 in the middle, 2 in the center, 2 in the middle, 2 in the center, 2 at the end. Okay, and then your next row you would make your scales again. So you just keep repeating those 2 rows until you have the desired number of shells. If you're making the small bag, that would be 6 shells. Medium bag is 7, large is 8, but you can go even more than that. Okay, and that gives us our flap that we're going to have for our purse. Okay, we'll go on to how to join the body in the next video.